Probably. There are plenty of evidences, I mean physical evidences, that he rose from the grave. People don't want to talk about him because if he did, then he is who he claimed he is, and that opens up a whole can of worms. Now I'm somehow responsible. What do I do with that? If he is who he claimed he was, what do I do with that? And the third reason is because Jesus claimed to be the one and only way back to a relationship with God. The only way. Not one of many. Not one from a short list. The only way. Now, if you ask anybody on the street, who do you think Jesus was? What do you think of Jesus? What are they going to say? He was a great teacher. He was a very gifted speaker. He was a great prophet. They're going to say all these nice things, right? They may not concede that he was the one and only Son of God sent to save us. They may not admit that, but they'll never say anything bad about him, right? He's always a good guy, right? Well, here's the problem with that argument. If he isn't who he claimed he is, he's not a good guy. Think about it, right? Right? If he claims to be the only way to God and no one's going to get to God except through him, if he was not who he claimed, then he is a liar. He is a deceiver of millions. Nobody ever says that. But those are your only choices. He either is who he claimed he was, or he is a bad guy. So that's a serious thought to think about. That's a serious thought to come with. Does anyone have any question? It's okay if you don't, but is there any kind of a burning? What about does anyone have a question before we finish up? Oh, hi. Yes.
I was wondering, about Christianity and science and how
That's a great one. How come Christianity and science conflict so much? Do you want my answer? Where does science come from? People. People who don't want. Exactly. People who refuse to acknowledge any kind of accountability to a creator. You know what, you guys? I don't want to get off on this, but I've done a lot of research. I've done a lot of research on evolution, the whole evolution creation thing, and all that stuff. And you know what, you guys? Let me just say this: if you're a thinking person, there's tons of stuff you don't know that you've not learned. Tons of stuff. Tons of physical, observable, scientific proof that a lot of the garbage you read in textbooks is not necessarily so. Why would they do that? You tell me. If I don't want to acknowledge that God is God, if I don't want to acknowledge that I'm accountable to anyone, what's the best thing to do? Write out an entire scenario where he doesn't even exist. And I just happen to show up one day out of a primordial goo. Right? You know what's funny to me, you guys? I've followed this, and over the last 25 years, they've revised the theory of evolution about 100 times. You know why? Because they keep finding things in nature that blow their whole idea out of the water.
Maybe it's just that. It's only
Yeah, the theory of evolution. You know what that means, theory? It means it's just an idea. It can't be proved. Can I tell you something cool? Okay, what does evolution say? I get off on it. I really get excited on this. What's evolution say? Evolution says that everything moved from a simpler form to a more complex form, right? Isn't that, do we agree? In its essence, that's what evolution is, right? From simple to complex, right? All by itself, right? Right? Do we agree? Who can tell me what the second law of thermodynamics says? Law. 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 Not theory. Law. What does the second law of thermodynamics says? It says everything in the universe left alone will go from order to disorder. Hear it? That's a contradiction of the theory of evolution. The law of thermodynamics is in complete opposition to the theory of evolution. You know what else? The fossil record. You can find layers of strata of rock that have like horses and like animals that we have nowadays. And you can find layers of rock and strata of rock that have dogs and whatever. But you know what you never find? Stuff in between. Now, if it took millions of years from one thing to turn to another, wouldn't you think you'd have a lot more fossils of the stuff in between, right? But it's just not there. Scientists find, I've read about this, you guys, scientists find a jaw, half of a jaw. And like, oh, the missing link. And they build an entire ape-like creature out of half a jaw. I don't know about you, but I don't really know how they figure out what his legs look like from this. But the best part is that years later, somebody will discover that it was the jaw of a pig. I'm not kidding you. It's happened, you guys. It's happened. But you know what? Here's the point. You'll never hear about that. You know why? Because that disproves their ideas. This world is not friendly to God. Do we all know that? And people do not want to acknowledge an accountability to God. So they're going to do all they can to make creation, to make the Bible, all of that stuff look like a bunch of mystical mumbo jumbo. And we're the smart ones. We've got it all figured out. Read our books. People who are in opposition to God control the culture. It's funny how many people just have a hard time buying into it, though. You know why? Because something inside you goes, this just doesn't seem right. It just doesn't feel right. There's a reason for that, because it's not. But again, more than all of that science stuff, it's interesting debate, but what really it comes down to is a relationship between you and God. But if you're interested, go check it out. There are tons of, there are places in the fossil record where they found human beings and dinosaurs. Well, evolution says they were 50 million years apart. They didn't live together. But they find it. It's there. You peel up a layer of rock and boom, here's some guy, just like me, footprints walking along, and then here's this T-Rex footprints walking along, and they find skeletons and remains. I mean, they can't explain it, but they just ignore it because it doesn't work into their plan. Exactly right, right on. What time does anyone have here?
10 o'clock.
10 o'clock.
All right. Hey, sweetie. He does. See? You guys, we're going to stay here for a few more minutes if you want to come up and chat. If you have anything you'd like us to pray with you about, you don't have to, certainly. My voice is gone, so and my flight leaves in the middle of the day today, so I'm not going to be downstairs doing any more signing or anything, so this may be my last chance to see you guys. Let me close us in prayer, is that okay? And we'll be dismissed, and thank you for